Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. It is me, Drastic, and Mr. Stop Spamming. Welcome, sir.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening to all.
We are back and we are looking tonight at the Muslim Lantern. Now, he is a popular Dawah apologist, and I'm sure many, if not all of you who watch this will know him. And in this video, he's talking to what he calls an agnostic, but he isn't really, and I'll explain that in a moment. He's talking to him about the perennial problem of Aisha's marriage to Mohammed. Now, Muslim Lantern is going to make up some stuff. Muslim Lantern is going to condone this practice, and he's going to use every kind of Darwa trick in the book. And we're going to go through and show why these arguments are either not true or just terrible morality. And there's also some stuff about Muhammad fighting lots of military campaigns. Now, the reason these two issues come up is because the guy he's talking to, he's not actually an agnostic. What he is he is a person who is, he believes either Christianity, he's drawn to Christianity and Islam, and he's trying to work out which one he believes is true. Now, obviously, as atheists, we believe neither of them are true, but in his case, he's looking at the problems that he sees in Islam. And so he brings up two major things: the marriage to Aisha and the militarism of Muhammad. Okay. And that comes towards the end of the video. So we're going to look through these. The Muslim Lantern does his best to bullshit his way through this and fails. And you've got two experts here to show you exactly how. So hope everybody enjoys. Hello to April and Smile in the comments. Nice to see you guys. Stop. Sorry, that was a very kind of machine gun fire entrance to the show. Did you actually want to say anything? Tell us how your week's been or anything before we get started? Or
We just had a very lively show last night because the title was "Is Religion a Form of Self-Mutilation?" And that was brilliant because it's a little bit of a controversial topic, and we had a lively discussion on this. So we quite enjoyed this. So that was great. So hopefully today we're going to have a similar result that people get, sort of animated and see what they can make if they agree with either one of these two.
absolutely, no, it sounds like an interesting topic. Actually, maybe you can redo that. For the English language channels here, and because that sounds like it'd be quite an interesting topic. But yeah, for now, I think what we're going to do is just jump straight into video. This we're already a few minutes in, so Peter, the agnostic, who's not really an agnostic, he's already asked these questions to the Muslim Lantern, and there's a few minutes of waffle which I'll skip past until they actually start getting properly into the details, and this is where we pick up in the video. So
Interesting. Is he really somebody who is like he needs a god, or is this somebody taking the mickey?
no, I mean I have obviously watched the whole video from the start to work out that it wasn't worth doing the first few minutes. But no, he seems genuine. He doesn't seem like he's trolling. He seems like he's needs a god belief, and he's looked at Christianity and Islam, and he's sort of somewhere in between. So it seems genuine. I mean, you never know; he could be a troll, but
Okay, yeah. No, I
either
thought
way,
it was something obvious. I
well,
thought
the
there was a
conversation
giveaway
comes
somewhere.
across as genuine. So even if he was trolling, I think we still get something out of it by looking at the
So, okay,
the
but there's
answer.
no clear giveaway that he's just sort of
Not that
kind of
I could see, unless I've missed
okay.
something and you can pick it up. But right, without further ado, we're going to get into this. Let's go.
I don't think there is anything like that. I don't know like the body of Bible with 100% certainty, but I don't think there is like any age.
Okay, there isn't. So
Oh, sorry. The question he asked him was that is there any like minimum age for marriage in the Bible? That was a question that Muslim Lantern just asked Peter. So sorry about that.
if God didn't tell you which age it is, then where do you get that moral teaching? Of course, there are Christians who would refer to verses in Ezekiel, for example, the book of Ezekiel, which talks about puberty. So it talks about the women development of puberty, and they will reference that this is the thing that we can use to give us an indication that a woman is ready.
I'm just going to pause it there. I have never heard a Christian use that apologetic or say we need to refer to Ezekiel for. I think this is just made up by the Muslim Lantern. It's always the first thing they do is whataboutery with Christianity. They try and point to other religions and say, well, there's going to be child marriage there, even though it doesn't actually say it. We're going to kind of infer it because of this and that. From our position, obviously, Socks, we don't care about that anyway, whether it did say
Yeah.
that in the Bible, because we're looking at Islam. So I think this is a dreadful apologetic to begin with, pointing at somebody else's religion. But I don't know what you think about that.
Well, a useful way of doing it is just saying, would you care whether if Captain Kirk said it?
Well, yeah. I mean, he probably thinks in this case is a bit more justified because this guy who's called in is he's saying he's looking at both Christianity and Islam. But the point is, I don't think that's a good way to persuade yourself that Islam doesn't have a problem with
Exactly. Yeah,
child
exactly. That's the
marriage
point.
by pointing
Yeah.
to the other religion, saying, because then that's like saying, oh well, we both got child marriage, so therefore we may as well pick us. That's a dreadful way of dealing with his moral
Makes
quandary.
it better.
But anyways, let's push forward, see what he's got.
Now, but there is nothing in the Bible, the whole Bible, from beginning to end, whether it is Old or New Testament, that talks about the age of marriage. So now, can you tell me, morality comes from God? Morality
No.
comes from the Creator only. Human beings cannot make moral judgments. It would be subjective.
Well, I mean, that's a ridiculous claim to make. I mean, whether you think
So
the morality is objective, subjective, to simply claim we can't make moral judgments is obviously false, since we're all doing it pretty much every day to some extent. So that's a ridiculous claim to make. But
Yeah, but look at the morality. Come on, please. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you look. I mean, if you look at the Bible, killing somebody just because he's working on the Sabbath, picking up sticks. Maybe his wife is sick and he wants to make a soup. So why do you want to kill the bloke? And then to go kill the witch, she doesn't have a reason to live. How many people, like the child that does not obey you, needs to be killed, needs to be stoned to death. The woman that is not a virgin on her on her marriage day or whatever you want to call it she's not a virgin. She needs to be killed. Come on, people, are you out of your mind? Look at the Quran. Look at all the ludicrous stuff that you find there. That is, I think, morality is the worst of all things to be brought up in the context of Bible and Quran. It's terrible. It's so immoral. It's horrible.
yeah, but like theists in general and Dawah apologists in particular will come up and say, well, even if you don't agree with the morality, that is not a case for the religion not being true. And in one sense, that you can argue, yes, okay, that is the case. It could just be that God has terrible morality. But when you are ascribing positive motives to that morality, when you are saying it's the best, you're not saying, well, he's got infinite power, so therefore we have to follow him no matter what. You're saying, no, this is good. You're saying by definition it's good. And I'm saying, well, if this is what is good, what the hell is evil, quite frankly? So I think it does cause a problem with the idea that your God is true if its morality that it's promoting is child marriage and all the other horrible stuff that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Scott. And also, as both April and Smile in the chat have pointed out, it's always the women who end up on the pointy end of this.
Isn't it just
dealing with the worst? So maybe these guys would have a different view if it was, more negative stuff for the men. But that's another another conversation, maybe. Anyways, let's push forward.
And therefore, it's not binding. So if morality comes from God and God doesn't tell you what the age is, then under what basis are you criticizing Prophet Muhammad for marrying any age? What is the moral criteria that you're using to say that this was something that is not great, whatever term you want to use? And you know what? Here is why morally God doesn't agree with this, or this is wrong, or whatever term you want to use. What is the standard that you're using for that?
I mean, I'm using I mean, if in my perspective, 9-year-old is a child, and Muhammad at the time he was around 40, and there's grown man.
Okay, first, look. I'm not asking.
So I just want to stop there. It's really funny with the Muslim lantern because this happens so often when he's defending whether it's slavery or child marriage. As soon as someone starts to talk in any depth and says things like, well, the Prophet married this 9-year-old, he's always got to interrupt because he knows no matter what apologetic he's got, this sounds terrible to any listener, including most Muslims. I would argue, when you just spell it out like that without the apologetics, it sounds terrible. So he always has to interrupt, like, oh no, don't say the words, let's cut to something else. I just thought it's worth pointing that out because it shows that I think he knows there's something fucked up about this.
And there's two mistakes here. Number one, the girl was 6 and Muhammad was 50, not 40.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I think he's about to say, "Oh, you're wrong on your numbers." There, it's like, yeah, they're even worse.
I'm going to respond to what you just said, which is factually incorrect.
Mhm.
But before I respond to what you just said, which is factually incorrect, I asked you the question not about your own. You went on to give me your subjective view, opinion, which it's not a criteria for morality.
Well, who says again? I mean, first of all, Islamic morality is not objective. Okay, we've done this a million times before, but theists claim they have objective morality, and particularly these Dawah bros, they don't, because it's still dependent upon the mind of God. So therefore, by definition, it is still subjective. Now, you can say it's divine morality, whatever that's supposed to mean, from God, but that doesn't make it objective in itself. So this whole game, as if like we've got objective morality and you've got subjective. As far as I'm concerned, that's absolute rubbish. But yeah, sorry. Let me just carry on.
Can you tell me where do you bring that it is morally wrong? Not societal opinions, not emotional views, not I think this, but it looks like that, but it feels like this. That's irrelevant. That's not where we get right or wrong from. It's not feeling.
Well, we do get morality from society, so he's just absolutely wrong on that. I mean, we decide by various societal means, as well as we do have a certain amount of human instincts that have evolved through our, through our evolution, and yeah, and we do have a conscience of some kind. Sometimes you just get a gut instinct that something could be wrong. That doesn't necessarily make it true or not, but there are various methods. It's not just God plants it like a seed in your brain. So he's just wrong there again.
Yeah, but
Your
the
feelings
guy's
are
also
not.
a little bit off here, because I don't know whether he understands what humanism is. He doesn't seem to understand how evolution and how the interaction, the social interaction between human beings, how that works and how it shapes you. Yeah, this is the whole social construct that you get as a child. This is what you learn as a child, that if somebody hits you, it's not a nice feeling, so you don't go around hitting others. This is how you learn this. So it's not that because I'm just shaking my head, because it's unbelievable how he says, well, it's not objective and we get morality from God. What is it that you get from God? You don't get anything from God. You get something in a book that says, written by humans, which says God will tell you that you are not allowed to do this and you must do this. Now, the morality of a God is running around a black stone 7 times is absolutely wonderful. Keeping slaves is absolutely wonderful. Marrying children is absolutely wonderful. Throwing gays off a building is absolutely wonderful. So those are the good parts. And then the bad part is being gay. Loving another person is bad. Now, where do you get this from? How is that moral? How is that positive for humankind, for a human being, for a person? Come on, I cannot understand it. I'm speechless when I listen to babble like this, where he makes the most preposterous claims and then says this is good. It's unbelievable.
But stops. There's also another flaw as well, which I don't think is brought up enough in this argument, is that if we've got no capacity to judge morality without God, then how are you supposed to convince someone who's not a Muslim that Islam is true? Because surely they've got to make a moral judgment without believing it in the first place.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
So
Exactly.
they haven't
Yeah.
got the capacity to do it. Then you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's a self-defeating argument.
And why is it that especially Muslims, I mean, like this is one thing I always bring up. Why is it that Muslims, there is not a single day, not one, there is no exception. Every single day, Muslims commit atrocities. And this is being documented, and we know every single day what is happening. What kind of a morality is that? How can you tell me that there is any kind of positive morality if this is the reality that we are getting, which is the consequence of this so-called morality by God?
Well, I mean,
Wow.
you know what argument they'll give is like, oh, well, Islam is perfect, but Muslims aren't, and it's like,
Yeah,
well,
you have free
if
will.
Islam
Yeah,
is
yeah.
perfect, but it can't actually instill better
What's
morality,
the
then
point?
what fucking use is it? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, let's push on.
The arbiter for us. And we are not going to be judged by the opinion of you. Like I just met you today. We're not going to take you as the moral standard of a whole, 2 billion people who are Muslims, for example. Now, you agreed with me that morality comes from God. So now, can you tell me What did you use to come to that conclusion and make that claim that this is morally incorrect? What are you using for that?
I mean, to be honest, like basically, like from what I have like learned in this society.
Okay, so you're using a subjective view of a person who's born in somewhere in Europe in a 21st century. What they taught you today is what you're using as a criteria to determine that this is correct or incorrect. And that's subjective and is essentially social. You are a product of your own society, and your society.
Yeah, as are you, Muslim Lantern. I mean, that's about. I mean, unfortunately, you're not. Well, I mean, he lives in London, but I'm not sure where this guy is actually from originally. But the point is, you are a product of your own society as well. So this is a completely stupid argument to make. The point is he's looking at potentially two religions, and he's saying, well, yeah, okay, I believe in God, but which one has the right morality? Because I'm reading some bits I don't like, and for me that's the crucial point. It's kind of like you are not liking it outside of whatever belief you've got in God or not. So it shows that there's something else working there. It's not just this, as I say, this seed that's been planted in your brain by God. Because if it was, he wouldn't have any trouble, would he? So stupid. April thinks it sounds like an Arab accent. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I thought he might have been from the Indian subcontinent, but yeah, I think Stocks agrees with you that he's probably North African or something. I'm not sure, but I mean, the point is, he's obviously a product of his own environment as well. If he was born in Thailand, he's much more likely to be a Buddhist. If he was born in Brazil, he'd be a Catholic. So you know, it's just stupid. Anyways, let me push on a little bit.
It is not like every other society, and it is not a criteria due to the fact it's being subjective to make moral judgments over other societies.
Kind of confusing, but yeah. Yeah, that's right.
confusing.
Like, yeah, we are. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but
Yeah, okay. So moving on.
Yeah, sorry, this guy is really weak. He doesn't really put up much of an argument, which is partly why we're doing this, because we're going to make the arguments for him. And again, I mean, we've already addressed this, so you know, we'll just push on. But don't expect anything great from Peter in this video, unfortunately.
Now, moving on. So if you don't have a moral command, we look at the Bible. Like I said, for example, if you're now comparing Christianity and Islam, so we look at the Bible. If you look at the Bible, we see the book of Ezekiel. Like I told you, that we have these verses that talks about puberty, and we have people using it. Even that doesn't talk about like the right age of marriage or whatever, but it talks about women being ready, and then it refers to puberty, like for example, development of certain body parts. I'm not gonna, because it's detailed and it's not really appropriate for you know, for all ages. I'm not gonna say what the verses are saying, but you get what the point I'm making. Talks about like certain body parts. Talks about.
I'm not sure why he's worried about the development of secondary sexual characteristics. I mean, that is basic biology. It's not like you're doing something like that's inappropriate material. So I really don't understand why he's getting all coy now. But anyways,
he's sufficiently curious now. What does it say in Ezekiel? Because I can't remember.
Yeah, I might have to go up
like
look Ezekiel up actually after this. Maybe if anyone knows what the verses he's talking about, it'd be interesting to put him in the chat.
Let's just
That's
say
funny thing.
the puberty.
Yeah, but the Quran doesn't either. The Quran doesn't say anything about the age of. It doesn't say
Exactly
how old you need to be.
which is why. Which is
But
why
the example he comes up with Aisha, it doesn't say anywhere that she had hit puberty. It doesn't say anywhere that she had started menstruation. It doesn't say this anywhere. Not in the Hadith, not in the Quran, nowhere. So where is he getting his morality from? What is the age of consent or the age of adequate, I don't know what you want to call it, adequate age to get married? Where does he get it from?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is basically from the Hadith, which says that Aisha married at the age of 9. You know, married at 6, consummated at the age of 9. So that is basically where he gets morality from.
Yeah, but that's it.
That it's really.
But he always says, yeah, it's a matter of puberty. It's a matter of menstruation, because he constantly repeats this, when she is ready. Okay, how do you know when she's ready? And this is where he goes now into secondary sexual, what did you call it? Characteristics or something.
Yeah. Well, let's Muslim Lantern speak, and then we'll mock him for it.
Now, puberty can range all the way from 8 years old to 13 years old. We're talking today. What is the source for that? For example, the NHS, the National Health.
Yeah, but look at what the NHS said. That little thing that he's just brought it up. It's perfectly normal for puberty to begin at any point between the ages of 8 and 13, not complete. And the point is, if you start puberty, that does not mean that you are then ready for sex. Even once you've completed puberty, you're often very not much ready for sex. So this is he's quoting something, or he's misquoting something, which he's then putting up on his own video to show that basically he's lying, because he's leaving it, and that's the lie of omission. He's leaving out that crucial word begins. So this doesn't help him at all. It just shows how dishonest he is. So that's lie number one.
Service in the UK will tell you that puberty can range from 8 years old. You can ask, obviously, anyways, that's a very common thing. If you have sisters or whatever, they can tell you it can range all the way from 8 years old all the way to 13 years old. So
yeah, but also, what does the NHS say about the age that people should be appropriately having sex? Do you think it says between 8 and 13 as well? Because it doesn't, and that's the crucial point. So don't quote things which aren't really backing you up.
Under the biblical narrative, this range from 8 to 13 is completely valid. Why is it completely valid? Because it is the puberty. And puberty, if we're basing it on Ezekiel, then that would be the case. If we look at...
Whoa. Hang on. What is he just saying? Is he just saying, why is it appropriate? Because science tells him, or because his God tells him? Because now all of a sudden he's using science to correct or to check his God.
Exactly. So apparently, retrospectively, the NHS in the UK is deciding what is the appropriate biblical age and correct age for marriage. This is what he's saying with this argument. It's flipping ridiculous.
The Bible, it talks about, for example, the Bible, chapter 31 in Numbers, the book of Numbers, chapter 31, verse 17 and 18. Do you know what is there? There's a command there where Moses commands his army. Moses, the prophet of God, commands his army. Sorry? Yeah, he commands his army in war that they capture the little girls that have not yet known a man for themselves. And the word there in Hebrew, it's about children. So little girls, children, child girls, to take them for themselves that have not yet known a man, have not had intercourse with a man, didn't do anything with a man. And the Bible has an explicit command to go and take these girls for themselves.
Right. First of all, this is just more whataboutery about the Bible. So it really doesn't help his case for Islam. But secondly, if it does say that it's a woman who's never known a man, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be a child. Now, I'm not trying to defend the biblical verse here. I mean, I think it's pretty horrible, but I'm just saying he will use that to basically claim that any woman who has not known a man is a child, and yet a child who's 9 who's had puberty is somehow an adult. I mean, how twisted up is this? I mean, it's
true.
It's completely creepy.
And the girl of 18 who's never had sex with a man, but she's fully grown up, then she's not applicable.
That's a child, yeah, apparently. Yeah, or she's 22 or 25. I mean,
yeah,
it just makes no sense.
Oh, of course, they're going to do this to them. They're going to do... What are you going to do? They're going to take the little girls do what with them? Exactly, more, yeah? What are they going to do with them,
Oh, I don't know. What did Muhammad do when he captured his slaves, or when he was gifted slaves? What is he going to do with them? Yeah, he's going to do the same damn thing. So that fucking shit-eating grin on his face is just so hypocritical. Sorry, I'm already getting into rant mode, and I know we're not even halfway through half an hour into the show yet, but he really does wind me up, this guy, because the smugness on his face is just so hypocritical. Ugh.
They're going to take them to the kindergarten, which doesn't exist that time? Of course not. They take them for there's only one purpose where you take women for it. And the emphasis on that.
Unless it's Muhammad or a Muslim army, then apparently they take them just to do some cooking and cleaning, because he's made that apologetic in the past. So if Christians capture women, it's to use them for sex and slavery. When Muslims do it, it's because they're protecting them so they won't die in the desert, and they'll give them a nice little job around the house. And this guy thinks that he's an... And this guy thinks he's an honest fucking arbitrator, even though we have hadiths, which you've made it infamous, Stocks, with the amount of times that you've quoted it. You know, when telling his soldiers to take their pleasure with the wives of the captured wives of the army they're fighting and everything, even though their husbands are still alive. I mean, you got literal hadith saying this about what Muhammad instructed his soldiers to do.
No, sorry, you're mixing. The one is that you're allowed to have sex with your slaves even though they're married and the husbands are alive and kicking. But in the hadith, you have dozens which say that you are allowed to take your slaves, have sex with them, and you do not to this word azl. You're not
coitus interruptus.
Yeah, you don't have to pull out, because God alone decides whether or not they will be
that was the one I
pregnant,
was referring to.
and whether the prices on the slave market will be reduced accordingly. So don't worry about it. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
The idea of not knowing a man is there's only one reason why you would take them. And you can read the biblical commentaries on these passages that will clearly talk about that. You can look at, for example, the marriage of Rebecca and Isaac in the Old Testament, which if you make a calculation of when Sarah, how old was Sarah and how old was Abraham when he was born, and all of these calculations will come to the conclusion that she was between 3 and 10 years old.
Yeah, these are Dawah calculations, and they're working from a book where apparently you can give away 112.5% of your inheritance. So, I mean, I'm really not trusting in their mathematics too much on this. And again, that is not to that's not to defend the Bible, but I've heard these Dawah apologetics before, and they're terrible. And all it is doing is just trying to deflect attention away from the fact that Aisha was a little kid when Muhammad did the business with her. That's all this is. And we're a third of the way through this video, and he's still doing the whataboutery with Christianity. So this is how bad he is.
Between 3 and 10. You cannot go more than 10. But between 3 and 10 when she married Isaac. And we have rabbis, right, in the Hebrew tradition, which explicitly would tell you that it is okay to get married at the age of 3 is the limit, basically, for them. They base it on this incident of Isaac and Rebecca.
I mean, I don't know if that is true, whether it is or not, to be honest. Again, it's just whataboutery. So, bad apologetics as far as.
But what is the limit in Islam? There is none.
Well, yeah. And to be fair, again, not trying to defend Judaism, but like, yeah, I'm sure you do get these like real hardcore Orthodox freaks, but they are a minority of the like Jewish community around the world. Most are kind of fairly reformed, or they're going to be even atheists. So, yeah, it's not a good apologetic.
So now, if you want to use the Bible, now you're surprised, but like that's the objective fact. This is the biblical narrative now, okay? So if now we're talking about the biblical narratives, you look at even the saints of Christianity. You look at these saints of Athanasius and all of these saints. You'll see many of them have, for example, had brides at the age of 12, for example. The age of marriage in their time in the Roman Empire was 12 years old. And that's why the Catholic Encyclopedia would record that Mary was 12 years old when she married Joseph. And then, based on that also, you had the Roman Empire having the age of marriage as 12 years old. So this is Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, that is true about the Roman Empire. But first of all, we're talking a couple thousand years ago. And secondly, again, there's just more whataboutery. And thirdly, I have to say, as that is way too young, as far as I'm concerned, 12 years old. It's still a hell of a lot worse to go down into single digits when you are doing the business, because every year you knock off, that is incredibly even more abusive. So again, I'm not not defending the Roman Empire, but then who is? This is the thing, you're defending this for today, and this is the problem.
Nobody can come from a Christian or Jewish worldview and tell us a certain age is right and a certain age is wrong, because they don't have a sanction from God, a moral sanction, objective moral sanction, or something determined.
Neither do
using
you.
God's.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Neither.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Stops.
No, that's it. Neither does he.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's just hypocrisy again.
Command that will tell us this age is right and this age is wrong. Okay. Now, not using the Bible now and using your society, and I know you're trying to say like using society as an example. If we use society as an example, do you know the age of marriage, for example, in the UK and in the US 200 years ago? Now, ignore the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1,400 years ago. I'm asking you 200 years ago. What?
First of all, it's irrelevant, okay? Because again, and the fact that you've got to say 200 years ago, this is the thing. No one today is going to support the idea of going back to some younger age of child, well, apart from predators, basically, within British society or within German society or American society or wherever. Okay, we've got to the point where we realise our minimum age is completely appropriate for the development of children before they have sex and before they get married. This is the point. So saying, oh well, 200 years ago. And what compounds that to make it worse is it's not like you're saying, oh, well, you can't criticize Muhammad and I'm not supporting it anyway. You want this today as well. So therefore, pointing to 200 years ago, this just makes you look even fucking worse.
Yeah.
Jesus
And
Christ.
look at reality. I mean, I'm not trying to convince anyone, but if I look at the US, they are almost a Christian country by now. And look at the uproar that the Epstein files or the case is causing due to exactly this point that he was messing around with underage girls. And this is a big no-no for the people, even though what Lantern is saying is that the Christians are okay with this. No, they are not, and especially not today, as we can see in reality today. So it doesn't matter what happened 200 or 2,000 years ago. Today, what is relevant is that this is no longer condoned, and it is Islam. It is.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to go back to Smile's comment. What's Muslim Lantern's opinion on Iraq changing the marriageable age back down to 9 for girls, which is what they've, and I think that has actually passed, hasn't it? So does Muslim Lantern object to that? You know he doesn't. And if he was ever asked that question, he would never give a straight answer, because if he says yes, he basically looks like a predator. And if he says no, he'd be lying, because he does think that's okay. So, and also he put off all his, hardcore kind of Dawah buddies. So, yeah, it's amazing that on a question of morality, you're going to go back 200 years in the past to try and undermine an argument that no one's making, because no one's saying we're advocating for the British age of consent from 1750 or something. We're talking about now. We've got things more or less right now, unless we get more information to show maybe it should rise further, whatever. But right now, this is the appropriate age, and we've advanced. You haven't. You're going backwards. And yeah, this is what Islam represents, unfortunately, in its core teaching.
What was the age of marriage in the UK and the US? Do you know?
I'm not certain with that, but I heard it was pretty low. Where I'm now, I don't
There is
10,
no
11.
such thing.
What's pretty low? Okay, so if
just wait a minute. The age of marriage as such does not exist. The thing is, it's more different. It's more sophisticated, because what they're saying is, if you, for example, I mean, I was very young when I started, but then so were the girls. In other words, that there was nothing illegal there. But if I were to have sex with a 13-year-old when I am 18, then it gets into the illegal sort of area. And the same is with marriage. So if you are 17 and you marry a 17-year-old, you're okay if the parents consent. But if you want to marry an 18-year-old and you're 30, then you need to wait, because you cannot marry her when she's 17 or 16 or 15. But it's different that if you are just 1 year older. So it's more nuanced than what he is trying to make it out, as though there is an absolute age, which is, normally bring up the age of 12 or 14, which is the case if the guy is the same age and she's pregnant.
Well, I mean, in the UK at the moment, it is you can get married as young as 16, but it does have to have parental consent. And
there are a limit to the guy's age.
I don't think so. I think it's I think it's, which is I mean, it's, but the point is consent for sex, which is the most important thing to me, because this is what we're talking about here. Although Islam is talking about marriage, but marriage ultimately for these Dawah guys means the exact same thing. It means access to sex for men.
The word nikah can be used for both. Exactly.
So the consent age is 16 in Britain. Now, some people think it should be a bit older, and I can sort of be sympathetic with that argument. But again, I think 16, as you're talking about, it tends to be be age appropriate because it'll be with a 16-year-old boy or something like that. So it's not like an older guy exploiting it. It's
Exactly.
them,
It
them
can be
discovering
adjusted.
themselves kind of thing. So there
Yeah.
is a massive difference there. So yeah, I can see the argument for raising it, but 16 I think is reasonable because there's enough psychological and physical development to minimize any harm there. But I would still find it absolutely disgusting for a 54-year-old to be chasing around a 16-year-old, which is what Ali Dawah was advocating in a video at Speaker's Corner, which I reviewed on my channel a couple of years back. He's basically saying, he's talking to some 16-year-old girl in the park, like saying, oh, well, why wouldn't you want to marry a 54-year-old? And it's like, dude, I mean, if you, like, you were just asking to be arrested, like putting these questions to a 16-year-old. But sorry,
And
anyway,
I'm curious what he's going to say.
it's a bit of a diverse. No, but anyway, just get back to video, because a Muslim Lantern is about to do another lie here. He's about to tell us what the age of marriage was in the UK a few hundred years ago, and he lies. But let me let him say the lie first, and then I'll correct it.
If you know that, if you know that it was around that age, then under what kind of rational idea are you trying to criticize it? Societies were very different. Now, the age of marriage in the UK was 7 years old.
Right. That's a lie. He's talking about a couple hundred years now. Right. What the actual truth is, if we go back to like about in the middle of the 18th century or a bit earlier, might be late 17th century, there was a betrothal age was technically 7, which means you could make a agreement to a future marriage at the age of 7, but you couldn't actually get married. I think it was 12. I think it was 12 for girls and 14 for boys. Now that's still too young, obviously, but we are talking 2-3 centuries ago, and we've updated. So not only are all these arguments terrible, he's even making up stuff to try and make it seem worse than it is. But even if he was right, this is still no argument. But he's going to lie about this as well. So, and if it's sorry, I haven't got the information available, but you just literally just go Google that and you can find it out in 20 seconds. So yeah, so that's lie number 2 for Muslim Lantern.
In the 1700s and 1800s, you can say that, but the fact is that was the case throughout human history until only recently.
No, it wasn't. There has been different marriage ages, and for the most part, even when you go right back to the ancient world, it was usually somewhere between 12 and 14, and the vast majority of people would still marry, say, late teens to mid-20s. So it's and another thing that we haven't even mentioned yet, Stops, we are supposed to be talking about Muhammad here, the most moral man to have ever lived. So even if you want to point to someone 2,000 years ago and say, yeah, well, that was screwed up that you married a 12-year-old, we're talking about the big man, the prophet of God, the man who's essentially perfect to all intents and purposes in Islam. He's doing this with a 9-year-old. So there's just no comparison. Sorry, I'm ranting again, Stops. At any point, tell me to shut up and you cut in, because I don't feel like I'm...
No, what you're saying is absolutely right. No, totally not.
Let's say the end of 1900s, the middle 1900s, where you had the Second World War, where they introduced women into the workforce, the liberal Enlightenment movement, feminism, all of these things. Until all of that, the age was this low in the whole world.
What do you mean it's all of that? You just conflated events that have run from the 17th to the 20th century. And he just says, oh, yeah, before all of that. No, there was gradual changes that went along, depending on what country you're in, what century you're in. He's just acting as if, like, up until what? We suddenly changed it, when Tony Blair was in government or something. I mean, what the fuck is he talking about? Sorry.
Even today, because you probably think about a number 18. That's the only number you probably think about in your mind right now for being okay and not being okay. But that's because your society convinced. But the age of consent today in almost around the majority of the world is 15, 16. In the US today, it depends on the state. There are states that have it as low as 50, some 16.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone's got a problem with 16. I mean, I think 15 is too. I think 16 is about right. But again, it's a world apart from being 9 when this is happening to you.
So it's even today in America and in the West and in the entire world, like the Philippines and Japan or whatever, they had it like 12 and 13 only like 10 years ago or something like that. They recently changed it.
Yeah, so they advise. I mean, again, I didn't even bother to check if that was true. Probably a lie, knowing Muslim Lantern, but he might be right on that. But this is the whole point. You're pointing to every society in the world and saying, look, they're progressing, they're getting better. I'm advocating for keeping things the same, as they were in the medieval age, or returning them to that barbarity. And he can't understand like the moral problem with that. I mean, he's making our arguments for us pretty much.
The people in the West are living in a bubble, and they think the whole world is operating under their bubble, you know?
I mean, he's just pointed to non-Western countries that have similarly raised their age, and yet he's saying we live in a bubble. No, you're living in a bubble for the 14th century, and which, to be fair, there are many Muslims who don't agree with this as well. So I'm not going to like, throw all Muslims under the bus on this, because there are many Muslims who will argue against this, or they'll say Aisha was older. And whether you agree with the apologetics or not, it shows that they fundamentally know there's something wrong with this narrative, that you shouldn't be having relations with a child that young. So I credit many Muslims for rejecting this. So you are living in the tiniest of bubbles trying to promote this.
Yeah, I've
Many of
had
them are living in a
discussion-
bubble.
Sorry,
I've
stop.
had a discussion with an imam, and he said exactly this. He said, look, those numbers, those things were made up for a time when the average age expectancy, the expectancy was much lower. Now, I don't know why it says that Muhammad lived up to the age of 62 or something, but the life expectancy in those days was much lower. The age of consent was much lower, and it was adjusted. And he says the way that the Quran is written, the way that the morality is displayed in the Quran and the Hadith is for the 7th century, and that's it. It is no longer applicable today.
Which, yeah, I mean, I still think it's a weak argument.
It still makes it work bad, yeah, sure.
But yeah, but it shows that obviously this guy recognizes that this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this today, and I will commend him for that, because at the very least, what he's doing, he's not encouraging Muslims, and this is why I almost feel like this is incitement to abusing children, this kind of Dawah apologetic, because he is encouraging Muslims to think it's okay to do this today. And the thing is, although yes, in England you can't do that, but we all very much know, particularly in certain Muslim communities like Pakistan or Bangladesh, they will go back to a home country to arrange a marriage and that kind of thing. And if you've been given the idea that it's okay to marry some little kid, don't we think it's going to increase the chance that you do it, especially in a place like Iraq, where now it's officially legal to do it, for crying out loud? So to me, this is like, I praise that imam that you're talking about, because at least he is trying to prevent this stuff from happening today. So that is something. Oh, dear.
And they're completely not in a view of human history. You know, how humans lived history, not only how they lived history, but even today, how they're still living history. They are completely unaware of that.
No, we're not unaware of it. You're lying. You don't know history. That's the point.
And they would come and talk about the Prophet Muhammad and the age this, age that. You got to wake up. Like, the world does not operate under what you've been taught in school or in your history.
Yeah, it does operate that way. This is the point. You are the fringe that are trying to make it. I mean, how fucking stupid is this guy? I've said enough on this anyway. We'll just push forward.
He's annoying.
Narrative. Just because someone convinced you something is a no-no, it doesn't mean that the rest of the world operates under that same idea, or that the whole human history operates under that idea. So when it comes to the UK, William Blackstone, which was a jurist, you know what a jurist is, like a judge, a jurist, in the UK at that time, he wrote a book. It's called Commentaries on the Law of England. And he was a jurist in that time, living that time. And he's the one who records that a woman can be given in marriage at the age of 7.
Yeah, a betrothal. And you know that Muslim Lantern has not read a single word in anything or in any of those books he just displayed. He just picked up the Dawah apologetic, that's all. And this is why he's getting it wrong.
And obviously, even in the US, like I said, it was 10 years old, and some states like Delaware had it at 7 as well. We're talking in the 1800s, 200 years ago. We're not talking about 1,400 years. That's why throughout human history, until 100 years ago, you're not going to find a single person that criticized the Prophet Muhammad for that.
Bullshit. That is the case. I mean, you might not find so much in the West because nobody knew who he was. I mean, Islam was not really a known entity in the West. I mean, as much as, yes, you had small numbers of Muslims living in Western countries, but the general population had absolutely zero knowledge. And that's, unfortunately, it's still kind of true today that large amounts of the population don't know about Islam. Which is why they fall for these lies, and why these Dawah guys are on the streets of London every day lying to the public to try to give them a more palatable version of Islam. But yeah, no, Muhammad's been criticized throughout history, so that's just garbage as well.
The funny thing is, come on, Islam started when? 9th, 10th century. Already 11th, 12th century, you have people like Al-Razi, you have people like Al-Mari. They are criticizing, they are laughing their heads off about the stories of Muhammad. This is just not even 1,000 years ago. And they're already laughing about this guy who's Muhammad and about his morality. I can't remember verbatim what it says, and you are telling us stories about a guy who has there's no useful message in what he brings us. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Smile makes a good point here as well. We're halfway through the video, and more than halfway through the video, and Muslim Lantern has not been able to affirm a positive case for
Yeah,
Aisha being married
exactly.
that young. All he can do is try to knock out criticisms in a terrible way. Every one of his arguments has failed,
Yeah.
but he can't promote any positive argument for it, and that is very telling, very telling.
You're gonna see the people criticizing Prophet Muhammad for everything, for wars, for whatever you mentioned, which we're gonna come to, which is the wars, and battles, and all of this stuff. But you're not gonna find a single person, non-Muslim, who criticized the Prophet Muhammad for this action. Now, first and foremost, you're not gonna find anyone in his society criticizing him for that.
Well, who in the Muslim society is going to criticize Muhammad himself? Like, unless they are, someone, if they are a believing Muslim and they think that Muhammad is the final prophet of God, of course, there's not going to be too many critiques of him, are there? Because you're likely to get your head cut off for blasphemy. So, I mean, that's a rubbish argument. But again, I'm sure you can go through history and find out that, people who knew that he had married a 6-year-old didn't find that too appealing. I'm sure it didn't just happen like in the 1990s or whatever. So it's just a baseless claim.
Because Aisha, his wife, she was betrothed already before him, before the Prophet was introduced, or even in the picture, she was already betrothed to someone else. You know what betrothal is? Like engagement, like basically. She was already betrothed to someone else before him for marriage.
She was promised, she was intended.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's ironic. He's like saying, do you know what a betrothal is? Kind of like, well, you clearly don't, because you've been mixing that up with an actual marriage. So, when it comes to England in the 17th century.
This is how the society was. Nobody criticized the Prophet Muhammad for that at that time. And nobody did until, I told you recently, the last 100 years or whatever, when things gradually changed.
Yeah, when we got better science, we understood psychological damage and physical damage, medical damage a lot better. We understood the risks of getting pregnant and childbirth and all the other very good scientific reasons why you should have some minimum age limit before you get involved in that activity. Yes, we learned that all more recently, and that is where the criticism comes from. So all this bollocks about saying, oh, well, I didn't hear too many people in the 9th century criticizing it. Well, yeah, because they didn't know back then. We know now, you know now, and you're still advocating for it.
Yes, what do you want to say?
Yes, so sorry for interrupting. I have a follow-up question, another one. I don't have much time, so if you can move to another question.
Yeah, no, you open this kind of forums, So because this kind of forums is not a small thing. A lot of people, I'll tell you why people use this marriage to Aisha thing. I'll tell you why people use it. People use
because it's disgusting, and because it shows the absolute immorality that is contained in the core of your religion, and it undermines the idea that Muhammad was the most moral man in the universe. Yes, there's very good reason why people focus on it, and as it's well acknowledged, it is a big reason why a lot of Muslims leave the religion, which is why you're desperately scrambling around trying to put out these fires. But yeah, I wonder what he thinks is the reason people pick it up. I wonder if it's got anything to do with Islamophobia, is it, or something like that? I'm assuming.
it because of the shock factor. That's it. People today have been brainwashed to believe the shock factor. The shock factor.
Oh.
Maybe because it's shocking. Yeah. Why do you think there is a shock factor attached to it, you moron?
The shock factor. So, because people today have been programmed to believe a certain thing when it comes to the age. This number 18 is the only number they see day and night. They sleep 18. They wake up 18. It's like, look, if you're 17, 600 and 360 days, or 64 days or whatever, and 23 hours and 59 minutes, and it's a crime if anything happens. But 1 minute later, it's okay.
That is the case. Well, first of all, there is more nuance in the legal system than that. That's stupid. So obviously, if somebody is very close to the age, then that will be taken into account. But you have to set, that is true of every law that's ever been set based on an age for any crime. You have to
Like
have
driving a car. You're not
So he
allowed
is
to drive a car with 17,365 days and
Well, exactly.
59 minutes, and 1 minute later you're allowed to drive a car.
He's basically advocating for having no laws which have a minimum age. That's what he's advocating. He's basically saying
Oh my
you may as well
God.
just not distinguish between adults and children in any factor of life because you can do this. Oh, well, what about 1 second earlier? Oh, what about 1 second earlier? And you can keep doing this regress. He wouldn't argue that for any other position, including when a Muslim child is considered to become an adult. Okay, well, what difference does it make if it was just 1 second before she hit puberty, or just a quarter of a second before? Is it really any difference? Because there's no real physical difference to her body, but they'll use it when it's convenient for them. I mean, this is so. Sorry, you're not supposed to use the R word.
Yeah, but this is the morality you get from Islam. There you go.
Oh, it's just mind-numbingly stupid.
Mm.
What kind of logic is that? That is the Western logic of today.
That is the logic of every legal system on planet Earth that's ever fucking existed, including Islam, you moron. Oh.
So the reality is women are different and their maturity levels are different, and it ranges from one person to another. Now, you use the term child. So now let me...
So, I'm not sure if he goes into this, but I wonder if Dr. Muslim Nantan would I can't remember if he elaborates on this. Women are different somehow. They mature earlier. Really, really. Okay. What are you basing this on? Because again, the legal age limit has been set to take into account physical development. So what the hell are you talking about? I'm not sure if he actually goes into more details on this. Let's have a look.
Let me correct you on what I said. What you said is wrong. So let me correct you on what I said you said was wrong. Can you define to me what a child is?
Okay, so he ignores that and goes into define child, bro, which is the worst apologetic ever on this topic. It's basically, let's dance around and pretend that child doesn't really mean anything, so therefore it's okay to have sex with a 9-year-old. Ugh.
We'll just say young human being. There you go.
You know, words and language.
Yeah, well, it's just a dictionary definition game. You see, we never see these Dawah guys do this all the time. What's a child, bro? What's slavery, bro? What's what's killing an apostate, bro? It's all this fucking dictionary definition game. But we know what children are. We got good definitions of what child and adult is.
Which have definitions. So not your
Yeah.
definition, but the linguistic definition of the word child. Why is a child?
I consider a child, a human being that hasn't hit the puberty yet, and that has like a mind of child, hasn't hit the puberty. We can say simply.
Sure. So puberty is the defining factor. By the way, in all dictionaries, until some dictionaries only recently changed a little bit here and there, open any dictionary in human history, child was someone who was under the age of puberty. Now,
No, I don't think that's actually true. I mean, obviously, I can't sit here and go through every dictionary or go through every historical dictionary, but puberty is associated with the transition from childhood to adulthood. That is the correct way of looking at puberty in a medical sense. So is it just nonsense? Just because you're stuck with a 7th century definition doesn't mean that medical knowledge hasn't moved on since.
Aisha hit the age of puberty, or she did not hit the age of puberty before consummation in the marriage of Prophet Muhammad.
ChatGPT, what is the definition of
apparently
child?
she did.
You looking up ChatGPT? Oh no! Don't even play the game, mate. It's not work because again, this is just distraction. He knows, like Lance said in the comments, he can't make a positive claim, so he's just trying to deconstruct what everybody understands reasonably a child to be. That's all it is. It's like trying to justify a murder by saying, "Oh well, was it really murder?" Because maybe he just slipped and fell on my knife. I mean, this is the kind of argument that he's making. But if you want to read the definition, you can stop, of course. But I just think it's
No, she's giving exactly the same definition.
okay.
Between
why
the
did
age
you use
of a baby and adolescence. So yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Term child. Why are you using a dishonest term, which you yourself has just defined, to be incorrect under an objective factor reality that she wasn't a child with the definition of a child? Do you know
Yeah, but I mean that is obviously complete nonsense. She was a child.
Muhammad, he made a contract with her 3 years before consummation.
He didn't.
Yeah,
With
And
his
I
then
think there
she
was
wasn't
like,
with
with
the
her
Prophet.
father, not with her, with the father.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't the consent of the child because the child really can't consent to something like that. They don't have the mental capacity.
Yeah, and she wasn't with the Prophet in the house. So a marriage contract does not mean intercourse. It does not mean physical engagement with the person in Islam.
Yeah, no one has said that. We all know that he heroically waited until she was 9 years old, as if that is somehow like any
As though it
less.
makes it better somehow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh, he's 3 years less of a pedo. Well done.
Wow.
You can have a marriage contract as a surety that you are with this person. Okay, but it does not necessitate
It's still
any physical
immoral,
contact.
you
So Aisha
moron.
was still
Come
with her
on.
family
Jesus.
after that marriage contract was done until she reached puberty, and then the consummation took place. So
I see.
why would the Prophet wait if it was about young girls and all of this nonsense that people say? Why would he possibly wait until she hits the age of puberty? Because by definition, the people who do these things, when you use the term children, once you hit puberty, you're expired for these people.
There is actually an answer of why he waited, and it was nothing to do with puberty. I remember this came up previously on a video, and I'd ask because I was speculating because I wasn't sure, and I thought, well, maybe he was on a military campaign for a couple of years or something, but then somebody had left a comment that there was some particular reason why he had waited, and it was nothing to do with puberty. But for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. So that's a shame. I probably should have looked that up, but it was nothing to do with puberty because I've seen
That's the
this
only one that
comment
I've
come
heard.
up. If anyone knows why it was weighted, leave a comment in the chat, or if you're watching this video afterwards, leave a comment under the video because it was definitely a non-puberty reason within the Islamic scriptures where they talk about this, but I can't remember what it was.
It makes no sense. Why would you wait until that happens? That is the exact opposite of what you would want if you were that type of person.
All right. Thank you for explanation. Can you like give me more explanation when it comes to like those battles? Because
Okay, sure.
my friend.
Okay, sure.
All right, so just to pause it here. So we got to just the last few minutes of this where they change the topic. As I say, at the beginning of the conversation, he asked about the child marriage thing, but he also said that Muhammad had been involved in something like 80 to 100 different military engagements, and that doesn't suggest a very peaceful man. So this is the argument that Muslim Lantern's responding to.
Muslim.
Okay,
like,
I'm going to say the last thing. Okay, I'm going to say the last thing, and then I'm going to answer quickly this battle thing. Okay. When it comes to the Prophet ﷺ's marriage, last thing I'm gonna briefly, quickly mention, because there's so many things that I can mention on this as responses, but I'm gonna just briefly say something. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ married multiple wives during his life, multiple wives, 12, 13 wives, you can say, throughout his life. All of these women, all of them were divorcees and widows.
So what? So what? So you know what, right? So if you murder just one person and all these other people you meet, you don't murder, then you're not a murderer. That's the logic of this argument.
And if you find your daughter-in-law that you tell your son, please divorce your wife, then it's okay to marry her. Or
Yeah.
if you kill the father, the brother, the husband of a girl, and then she's a widow, now it's okay, I can marry her. Come on.
Or
The
if
one
you
question,
get slaves as gifts, and that's fine as well. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the one question I would love to ask Muslim Lantern, if you had a daughter and she's 6-year-old, would you give her to me as a wife?
No, because you're kafir. You're
Okay,
lower
if
than
I'm a Muslim,
so-
if I'm a Muslim and I'm 60, would you give her to me as a wife?
I mean, in reality, no, but he'd probably be like Ali Dawah and say yes. I reckon he probably would, because I mean,
think
Ali
so?
Dawah basically said
You
he
think
would.
he'd pretend that far?
Could do. I mean, in Ali Dawah's case, I'm starting to believe that he really does actually. He would do that with his own daughters. I mean, he said it on several occasions. So I don't know. It's hard to tell how much they really would go with this, but I don't know with the Muslim Lantern. He is pretty far gone as a fundamentalist.
Either divorcees or widows, except Aisha. Widows or divorcees, meaning they got divorced
Yeah, I love it. Look, I mean, what does that say about Muhammad? He was going after older women, wealthy women whose husbands had died, who we could basically get their estate by marrying off their wives. So as well as being, after underage women, he was also like a male gold digger. I mean, this is not.
No. Because Khadija married him, not the other way around.
Yeah, but from his perspective, he thought because she was a wealthy, influential businesswoman, wasn't she?
She
So
was
that
seducing
represented
him
a strategic marriage because he
and to
could get
persuade
wealth and
him.
influence. So, he's not this moral man. Oh, I'm just helping out the poor widow. No, he's got something to gain. But sorry, it's a bit of a sidetrack. Let me carry on.
Or their husband died. So the Prophet ﷺ, his first wife, Khadija, she was 15 years older
Yeah, or the husband died on his orders in a couple of cases.
than him. Older. So now we talk about age and older and younger. She was 15 years older than him. He wasn't with someone else until she died. After she died, he married Sauda, which was also an older woman, and she was a widow. Then he married all the rest of his wives, which were all divorcees and widows. A man who is looking for women, young, and all of these things, that is the last thing he would do. He would marry.
What do you mean? He had potentially infinite access to sex slaves as well. So it's like, yeah, I've got a few older wives on top of all the other women that I can use for sex as well. What a
Who
hero.
were young, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Old virgins, young in age, and all of that. This image
What
that
was
people
his
are trying
advice?
to paint.
Sorry, there's one thing you need to mention. What is his advice to a friend? Why did you marry an old matron? You should marry a little one and play with her.
Is that in a hadith?
Yeah.
I don't remember that hadith. Oh, okay. If anyone can find that
Put
hadith,
an older matron.
dear oh dear, that is terrible.
It's nonsensical. Now, the last very important comment I need to make. But like I told you in the beginning, this is not a foundational issue. If someone says, I don't believe the Prophet Muhammad married Aisha in this age, we as Muslims are not going to say this person is a disbeliever. That doesn't take you out of the fold of Islam, because it's not one of the 6 articles of faith. It's not one of the 5 pillars of the religion.
And it's also not the point of this conversation. So I'm not even sure why you're bringing it up. The point is he's got this as a moral problem with Muhammad, not whether there are some Muslims who believe it or not.
It's not a foundational issue. It's information about the age of a wife the Prophet married. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's information about the kind of man he was as well. Let's be honest.
Yeah, because
do you understand this point? So I'm trying to say that this is not a criticism towards the religion of Islam itself. This is just a side point at best. Because if someone says, I don't believe it, it doesn't disqualify them from being a Muslim. But like I said, only people use it because of the shock factor.
No, because Muhammad is supposed to be the idol even today.
Yeah, he's supposed to model human being that all Muslims should follow. And so therefore, this is a big problem with that. Right, I think he's finally going to get onto the battle thing now. Sorry, I was a bit premature on that. A little bit like Aisha. We'll finally get into the battles here.
To talk about the battles, you said 800. Either I said how many battles you said? 8,200 or whatever. Huh? Yeah, 8,200 battles. Now, can you tell me what is the source for this funny story about 8,200 battles?
Actually, you can just Google it. I mean, I Googled it before it, and even the AI said that he was involved in 86 military campaigns. So he was right. Again, he's going to try and fudge, what counts as a battle, So he'll ignore things like raiding caravans and stuff. But I think any kind of military engagement, this is what he's talking about, a violent military engagement, whether Muhammad is on it or as military commander, he orders it, then he's responsible for that military engagement. So he was actually right in terms of the numbers on that. As I say, if you just Google it, I haven't looked into it deeply, but it said something like 86, I think, 86 engagements.
Where's the source? Because that is obviously a joke that never happened. But where did you get this number from?
Samuel Gardner, who is watching this live stream, he told me 8,200.
Well, of course, that's nonsense, and there's no source for this.
Oh, I see.
I mean, I'm sure you can just go and count up the battles in the various biographies and come to that number. I'm sure that's probably where they've got it from.
Well, then in this case,
they were not 8,200 battles.
No, he said between 80 and 100.
Overwhelming majority, also to keep in mind, with the exception of very few battles, you can say 2 or 3 or whatever, or even less. The overwhelming majority of the other battles, which were in you can say from 10 to 20 battles, if you even want to go to an extreme, if you want to consider certain things battles,
an extreme lie, yeah.
Certain things are not, but they're definitely not 8,200. Now,
apparently there are.
These battles the Prophet ﷺ had, the overwhelming majority of them were defensive battles.
Of course they were. When you go raid somebody's caravan, that's defensive, right? Because that caravan was going to try and run you over or something. So
I've just looked up Wiki Islam and they come to 100. No, 100 exactly. That's what they
100.
stopped.
There you go. Yeah, so it's all around that figure. So he's lying. But apparently they're all defensive, even though that's another lie.
Yeah, of course.
So the first battle, for
when they attack Spain or France, it's all in defense. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, we are talking about Muhammad here, but you know he was doing aggressive battles as well, so that's a lie.
example, the Battle of Badr was a defensive battle. The Prophet, he left Mecca because they were trying to kill him and his companions, and he had to go to Medina. They followed him and they fought him. And they fought him there to try to kill him. The Battle of Khandaq or Al-Ahzab, it was also a defensive battle. I can go on and on and on, give you the number of defensive battles the Prophet ﷺ. Oh, the Battle of Uhud was a defensive battle. There were so many defensive battles. Even certain battles which you can say are not necessarily defensive, they were done with justified reasons. Like, for example,
oh, so even when it's not defensive, first of all, oh no, they're all defensive, and then it's like, oh, but when it wasn't defensive, it was still justified anyway because we're allowed to attack people.
And why exactly is it that Islam is such a convincing, such a wonderful religion that people are constantly fighting people? Why is it that Islam is being attacked left, right, and center when it is so convincing, so wonderful? Everybody accepts Muhammad. Nobody criticized him. Everybody said that Muhammad was the greatest person alive at the time, and they attacked him all the time. What are you talking about?
Well, I remember some years ago when you and Rob and I think Moose as well, you went through the list of all the people that Muhammad either directly killed or had killed on his behalf because they pissed him off or he was
After he
trying
came
to
back. Yeah.
find him. And it's an enormous list. I mean, it ended up running to hundreds of people, I think, just like personally ordered by him to be killed or actually killed himself.
No, not quite. No. It was less. But still, it's not that some people say no, there's not a single one of them, and then you go through the list and you show him that there's maybe 20 or 30, and they're all, but this is not true. This is propaganda.
It's more than that. It's more
this
than
is
that.
justified. And
he essentially gave the green light for the what was the name of the Jewish tribe where there were 600 people killed. He gave the green light for that.
the Banu Qurayza.
Yeah, I mean that was 600 people. So I mean, yes, okay, but he had the ultimate authority stamp to say whether they should do it or not, and he did, and he's like, yeah, they should die for supposedly betraying him. So like, this is bullshit what he's talking.
And they asked him, well, what about the children? What about the women? What was his answer? Don't worry, they are with them.
No, yeah, exactly.
there was a caravan going with the people of Mecca. They were going with a caravan, and the Prophet said that this caravan should be raided. This caravan is carrying goods. The Muslims who went to Medina left all their goods there. So they have a right to reclaim the things that they left, because they left because they were leaving for their life.
That's brilliant, isn't it? So supposedly, because you left your stuff behind in a city, that means you can go rob some other people to make up for it. This is Islamic justice. This is great. So if anybody ever, if I forget my bag on the tube, right, tomorrow, I can just go steal somebody else's. That's Islamic justice. What is
I hear this so many times. It is so pathetic how I mean, this is like a little child. There is no logic behind this. There is no reasoning behind this. This is just like a little child saying, yeah, but this was mine, so I'm just taking what is mine. I mean,
even
killing other people for it and raiding this whole entire caravan with everything. Why do you think that if you leave stuff behind, that the people are going to take your stuff and take it all the way to Damascus to sell it there to the people, secondhand stuff that you owed? Jesus Christ, do you think everybody is stupid or what?
But stop, it's not like he's even claiming, oh no, this was our stuff. He's just basically saying, well, somebody in that city must have our stuff because we left it behind. So that means we can just take it from anybody who lives in that city.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff back. How is that? That is basically saying, if I get something stolen from me, or if I just even forget it or lose it, I can just steal from a random person. That is what he is justifying here. And this is morality.
They had no choice because they were going to kill them. So now there's a caravan with goods. So they're trying to get back what belongs to them. So that is a justified reason. Similarly with the conquest of Mecca, coming back to Mecca, their homeland and their families and their homeland and city. And when the Prophet ﷺ came, by the way, in the conquest of Mecca, Prophet ﷺ, when he came with a huge, massive army, and the people in Mecca, which were fighting all of these battles, trying to kill the Prophet one time after the other. Do you know what the Prophet did when he came and they surrendered?
No.
You know what he did to them? They were persecuting him for 13 years. They killed some of his companions. I told you he had to leave because they were going to kill him. They sent a bounty hunter after him when he left. Now, do you know what the Prophet did? He killed them all. No, of course he didn't kill them all. But that's the logical explanation. And even if he did that, nobody would blame him. But do you know what he did?
So wait a second.
Even
So
if he did.
he's advocating for collective punishment, right? First of all, this persecution thing is mostly bollocks anyway. So it's like, yeah, you came in there basically spreading your religion, insulting their religion. They tell you, can you stop doing that, please? We like our religion. And then you say, no, I'm going to keep insulting you, and they drive you out. Okay, so that's not persecution, especially when you insist on being able to do that to other people to criticize your religion. But secondly, even if, let's say, they were persecuted or they killed one of his companions, that means that they can do collective punishment by conquering the entire city. That's what he thinks is justice, because he was supposedly persecuted by a few people in the city. They can just come back with a fucking army and take it. And then he's merciful because he didn't have everybody killed in the city.
But he wasn't even persecuted. He was mocked. That was enough.
Exactly. That's enough to besiege an entire city, according to Muhammad. That's how much of an ego he's got. That's how fragile his ego is. You mock me, I'll come back with an entire army and take your city down. And let's be fair, if you besiege a city, there's going to be a lot of people who die anyway before you surrender. So, you know, this merciful man, he could have just forgotten about it, you know, just said, all right, I was mocked. But no, I'll take out an entire city. God, Lord. All right, we just got another minute of this, I think, even less than that.
Oh,
so
what a pity. This is so nice.
yeah, I mean, it is funny. He is good for a laugh, Muslim Lantern, because he's so ridiculous. But yeah, unfortunately, we're into the last minute. So let's see what he's got.
He let them go free. He led the people who persecuted him, killed some of his companions, plotted to kill him, sent a bounty hunter after him when he left. He let them go free.
What a hero. He didn't murder the population of an entire city for what supposedly a few people did to him. What a fucking hero.
Now, you cannot do this. I cannot do this. We wouldn't do that. Someone was persecuting me for 13 years, killed my family members. Like, you know, I had to leave because they were plotting to kill me. They fought battles and battle after me, trying to kill me. They didn't even stop when I left. But when I came back, when I was in a position of power, I showed mercy.
Yeah, I mean, you could, even if we were to accept that this is somehow merciful, which I don't think it is in a way that we've pointed out, there's plenty of other times. I mean, is it merciful to set fire to somebody's chest to try and find out where their gold is? Is it merciful to torture people in that way and murder people in that way? Because Muhammad also did that kind of things, or had it ordered on his behalf. So it's very easy to cherry pick these little stories about Muhammad and exaggerate them and ignore all the times that he's brutalizing people. So yeah, there's your wonderful prophet. I think this is literally it though. Stop. So I'm sorry, the fun is going to be cut short tonight, but I think
Yeah, pulling people in 4 different directions or cutting off hands and feet and letting them bleed out in the desert. Congratulations. What a merciful prophet.
exactly. And what was that hadith I found a few weeks back as well, where he says, like, if you don't come to the mosque, I'm going to burn your house down as well. He was threatening.
Yeah, there's several of those actually.
Right, let's just last few seconds of this.
Now, that is the Prophet Muhammad that some people are trying to paint him as battles and not battles and all of this stuff, right? So, okay.
Right, I think that is literally it. There is a couple of minutes left, but they start talking about the crucifixion or some nonsense. So it doesn't interest me. It is made for an interesting talk. So I'm not here to defend Christianity. So yeah, that's basically it. This is Muslim Lantern spending most of his time telling us why it's good to have predatory marriage relations between adult men and little girls. That's basically it. And this is one of the most popular Dawah guys at the moment. The man who advocates, promotes, encourages, condones, wants this kind of thing in the world. I mean, somebody said in the comments that he is living in the Middle East. I can't remember who put that down. But I see this guy constantly on videos at Leicester Square and Speaker's Corner in London. So if he is, he must be flying back and forth quite a lot. But if he is living in the Middle East, I hope he stays there, and I hope that he's not allowed back into the country, because I just feel that, again, if you're just defending the historicity of something, you're defending Muhammad doing it back 1400 years ago. That's one thing. I think it's terrible, but it's in the past. Okay, there's real consequences to preaching that this is okay today. There's real young girls who will be the victims of him promoting this kind of stuff. And so, as much as I laugh at this goon, it is actually quite serious. And I honestly think people like him should not be allowed in the country. And people can call that, oh, you're against freedom of speech. No, as far as I'm concerned, this is incitement to serious violence against children by promoting this, because some number of Muslims are going to follow this advice because these guys are popular amongst the Muslims. So that is my position on it. And the whole battle thing was just crazy anyway. Stops, what's your take on the brilliant Muslim lantern tonight?
No, it's unfair because you've just said everything.
Oh shit, I've got to stop doing that, haven't I? I do too long in my
No, it was spot on. The only thing that I would add is I would rename him as Mohammed Epstein.
Mohammed Epstein, that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, you could also have Ali Epstein, couldn't you? Because he also and Daniel Epstein as well for Hikikachu. I mean, there's so many of them and Uthman has promoted this as well. I mean, in fact, I mean, they all do to a greater or lesser degree. I mean, he's particularly egregious at it. I mean, the EF Dawah guys and those kind of the ones who take a slightly softer approach, they'll dance around it a bit more, but they'll never condemn it. They'll never say that it's categorically wrong to have that kind of relationship with a girl that young, where, as long as she's gone through puberty. They won't say no to it. So they're all guilty of this, in my opinion. And yeah, there should be consequences. I don't like these people being in the country promoting this crap because there's real world harm that's going to be done from it. And
unfortunately,
yeah. Well, what about the whole battle? I mean, Stops. Give us a summary on the battle thing, because you know the biographies a hell of a lot better than I do. I mean, I'm sure you can think of plenty of other conflicts and stuff like that Muhammad was involved with, where he was, either attacking or brutalizing people. I didn't know if you wanted to bring up an example of it or anything off the top of your head just to counter this narrative.
Unfortunately, they're fictitious.
Well, yeah, I mean, but in terms of they believe it, though, that's the point.
Well, what they believe is what they want to believe. Okay, all these battles. If you look at the numbers that they have, I mean, how can you have an army of 10,000 people when this is like the entire population of the whole of southern Arabic peninsula? There's no way that you can have an army of that size, and yet they are constantly talking about thousands of soldiers fighting a handful of Muslims, and they slay them all, and with the help of Allah, they. Come on.
Maybe there were a few jinn on the battlefield plumping up the numbers. Stops. Might be a few
and for me, it doesn't gel that you have this wonderful prophet, you have this wonderful religion, you have this wonderful explanation of the world, and everybody is so peaceful and wonderful, and yet you're being attacked left, right, and center, that you have to even defend yourself. But defend yourself against whom? Who is going to attack you? Why would the Jews attack you? I don't understand it. The Jews were living there, okay? Christians were living there. The polytheists were living there. All sorts of people were living there, but we're in the middle of the desert. Now there's no water there. So how many people are you going to get actually living in the desert? There's not going to be a whole lot of them. And then these handful of people, they have a hard life. This is not an easy life. And then you have the Arabic nomads who are just going from oasis to oasis, just looking, they're camel herders. The only thing that happened around in the 7th century is that the Arabs suddenly sort of joined forces and then became a real force in this region, because they attacked then people who were so exhausted from all the battles, because they had the Mongols, they had I don't know how many battles they had, and everybody was so tired between the Byzantines and the Persians, and then the Arabs came and just sort of filled the void. But this had nothing to do with Islam. This had nothing to do with Quran or Muhammad or anything. And I don't understand why they constantly make this claim, because it's on the one hand, wonderful, and then everybody needs to defend themselves. And then suddenly Allah does not work.
Isn't it? I mean, I understand why they put the narrative out, because that is the thing that they think is history, even though it is there's almost nothing in terms of like primary source evidence on most of this stuff. But
Exactly.
but the yeah, I understand why they have this, but what I just find hilarious is like, even when they've got examples of Muhammad doing these aggressive battles and torturing people and having people murdered and having, you know, agreeing that whole tribe should be put to death because apparently they've been betrayed. Well, not sorry, you enslaved the women and children, put the men to death. Just be clear on that. You know, all these atrocities, and yet they think that they can all be justified. And I just feel like, you know, these same people will turn around, and I don't want to get too much into politics, but let's say, you know, there are plenty of wars in the Middle East where innocent Muslims get killed, and suddenly that's not good enough. But if innocent civilians get killed because of Mohammed campaign, that's completely justified. So it's this constant double standard. It's constant double standard, and this is a problem. And this leads into a presentation that I do want to do, on why I think the only way you can detoxify Islam is to get rid of the emphasis on Muhammad. Is because, again, it's this bullshit given history they've got about Muhammad, combined with the fact that he's supposed to be perfect, you have to justify everything he does. It justifies this militarism and this imperialism, and that's why it's so hard to stamp out. This is why you've got these jihadis now in Syria, and they're going around and killing the Druze and the other minorities in Syria stuff, because this militarism you can't stamp out, because they think, well, Muhammad did it. And this is why I think you need to get rid of Muhammad if Islam is ever going to play nicely with the rest of the world in the future, you know, and on a scale where you don't have jihadis constantly at fear of popping up. Even if I agree, most Muslims are going to be peaceful, but there's always enough jihadis that rise up. And the big problem is Muhammad, having Muhammad as your example is a millstone around Islam's neck, and it will be until you just got to really diffuse this influence from the religion.
Yeah, because it's used as a justification. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that was a good video. I mean,
Okay.
knowing now that you really like Muslim lantern stocks, maybe I'll try and find a fun one which is a little bit longer so we can go on for longer, because I do enjoy actually pulling his bullshit apart. But thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to Smile and April in particular, Rising Damp and Quran Only fans who came in there. Thanks to Dude. Thanks to anyone else who's been there. There's a couple of other people. Sorry if I've missed your name. Yeah, this was good fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's good to, you know, I know we've done this whole marriage thing a number of times over the years, but I think it's good to cover it from time to time to, you know, for new people, to show how bad these
Remind people.
yeah, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you as usual to Stop Spamming. We should be back next Friday at the usual time. Not sure what we'll be doing then, but we'll come up with something. It will be fun as usual. So yeah, that's good night for me, and good night from Stops, I suppose, and we will see you next Friday.